right, good afternoon. It is Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. I'd like to call this study session of the Clear Creek School Board to order. It is 4:30 p.m.
Flanagan.
Here.
Haig.
Here.
Kane. Here. McHugh.
Here.
North.
Here.
I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second. Flanagan.
Yes?
Haig.
Yes.
Kane.
Yes.
McHugh.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Superintendent update. So I just have a few things. First is board recognition. And we'll maybe talk about that more, but thanks for everything you do. We'll talk more about that next at our business meeting also, but I do want to get a picture afterwards tonight. Chris from the newspaper will like a picture. I have something going in there, so just so you kind of know, so we'll get a quick picture. It's an unpaid job, sometimes thankless, okay? But no, you represent things well. Hopefully people recognize the time and effort that this board and that you's board members put into things. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate that. So just a few updates. We talked at the last meeting, I think, about the second signer. Lee and I are working on that right now. In fact, we have a meeting set up for to finalize kind of our changes we're talking about next week. Next week or the week after, one or the other. So we're just finalizing some things and using the audit as the basis for that.
And just to clarify, there is 2 signatures on every check, so she's not the single sole signer.
Yes. Thank you. So just so you recognize that. 33, the generator. Aaron and I and Rachel from Jacobs have talked off and on about this that way, and we're getting costs in. Costs are not what we thought they would be this week. Monday, I think it was Monday. It's only Tuesday, so it had to be Monday if it was this week. But kind of talking about that. Some things with that, looking to stretch dollars, it could do a certain part of it for around $400,000 plus. To do the mechanical is a whole nother situation. Freezing pipes, that's about $800,000 to $1 million. Our thought at this point is to hold off on anything with that and looking at some other options that way. And on top of that, and I'm not the generator expert here either with the use, but we still, even the day when we didn't have school, we still could not have held school that day. It gives minimal lighting and everything like that too. Aaron, do you want to add anything about that way or anything?
I think Tom mostly covered it, but just an emphasis that on both options, whether it's the $400,000, which is minimal minus mechanical, or $800,000, which would be plus mechanical, allowing us to heat the school. Neither option would allow us to hold school with that generator. We do have generators at both the high school here and King Murphy, which allow similar service as just emergency lighting. And we don't have one at Carlson. I think it's a area for discussion for further funding and other funding, but at this time, I think we've all come to the conclusion to put it off until then.
And kind of looking at that as long range planning, looking at that, is that something, along with a multitude of other things, but is that something? It's just kind of recognizing that aspect that way. And then I guess tying in, it's looking at solar and how that could impact things as well. We are having a design expert or whatever look at the roofs that way. It's great for additional weight. There's also other places you could solar. Do you want to talk anything about the solar area that way? Kind of going with the generator in some ways, but kind of separate too.
Yeah, so it's the very start of the conversation. I have spoken with quite a few great contacts that Jacob has put me in with. So as those conversations evolve, we'll bring that to the board and have further discussions with leadership. But as of right now, I've reached out to the county because they had recently installed some solar on one of their buildings, Charlie's Place, that building. So the county manager is going to give us some data when they receive that. It doesn't sound like it's quite online at this point, but said we'd be happy to look at that data when they get that, give us some numbers there. Then I started the conversation with the structural engineer to see if it's even feasible to put solar on our roofs. And some other pathways that will opened up to do that as well. So I think the conversations are looking really good. We'll see where it goes.
So I think another thing with this, looking at cost of that, cost savings, short-term, long-term, replacement of them eventually, pros, cons, you can go on with that, on the roof, off the roof, there's different ways. And so we're trying to explore that more deeply to see where we're at. And I don't have it, I have no estimate on, do this building, if you do Kinger, if you do Carlson, what, we don't have any idea on that cost. Are there rebates with it? Opportunities, there's something in the, in a bill and legislation that's gonna be proposed, talking some about it too, but we don't know where that will go with renting, buying, whatever the case is. So it's just a lot of unknowns, but we do want to see what the load bearing weight or whatever you want to say for the roofs would be too, and we'll get that for King Murphy and for the middle school, high school. So it's kind of that. Okay, on marketing, enrollment pages are up. There are a couple edits being made to them as we're speaking today that way. I know one was made this afternoon. I'm pretty sure it was made this afternoon. The principals worked on those over break some. I did had conversations that way, so we're really looking at that. The ads on Facebook and Google are out and running right now. I have not got one. I don't think here has, but they're out and running. Kristen helped out
Well,
with
if you're
that.
doing it right, I wouldn't get the ad.
Yeah, but Kristen helped out with that, with Katie, the marketing, to get that set up. We had to have a location, had to change some different things. It's not just as easy as whatever the case is that way. So hopefully those will go well. We'll see that there is notifications going to principals. I'm involved in that too. I have the Google Sheet for that as well. So kind of see that. Best grant, I have looked at the best grant. I have not been able to get onto our application yet, but I am there. I have all the information for Aaron and I talked about that today. Yesterday, both we talked about that, but yeah, so.
And I did locate the best grant that was awarded in 2021. So we can look at that and use anything pertaining to that,
And our match for that this year is 69% match.
Happy belated
It's lower than
birthday.
that, I think. There are some districts that are in the 70s and some districts that are in the, I want to say teens and 20s. We're in the upper part for the matching part of it. I don't have the details on why or what. I haven't read into that much of it yet. Graduation requirements, I've talked to Brandy some about that, changing schedules, how does that impact graduation requirements, and really looking at that. And I think, so we're gonna be talking more about that in the near future, I'd say, hopefully March and April. There's also some other policies from CASB that go with graduation too, that we're holding off and getting those until kind of tie it all together that way. Got a lot of stuff here. Old Carlson. Old Carlson, who said the superintendent told me when I gave board updates, he said, make it 2 or 3 things, don't want to bore them with everything. So anyway, I apologize, but Old Carlson, I've had some consistent communication with JLL. They're looking at different things. They expect some submissions for
February.
in February that way. So just so you kind of are aware, they're diversifying it out to a lot of different things.
Good.
4th floor, a question was asked me about 4th floor of electrical, heating, and basic mechanical. The setup in there is there, but there would have to be additions to it that way for people who would be renting it out, whatever the case is in the district.
Wait, is there a basic heat in there?
There is some basic heat in there that keeps it like maybe around 60-ish.
Yeah, it's comfortable in there, but the idea is only to supply heat to our
Yeah, sure.
electronics to not freeze
For
up.
the right
It wouldn't
zones.
be
Yeah,
for an occupied space.
right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Comfortable, I don't know. Far from comfortable.
I like it cool. I like it cool, so it's
No.
nice if you want to-
Well, 72 is the proper temperature.
That would never fly with me, just so you know. The final thing I had is just some superintendent meetings. I talked, I think, in notes maybe about, that'd be kind of we could have a large group or each individual. I I'm kind of leaning towards maybe just doing some individual, or it could be in group of 2 that way if you want. But I'm gonna reach out, send out an email tomorrow on that. That way I'd like to just meet with you and find out good, bad, ugly, future thoughts you have that way. And then I'll try to share that as a synopsis for everyone. So any questions on my things there?
Okay. So we've got a couple of students here this evening that are gonna share some input on the new schedule for next year. So you're welcome to stay there, you can come forward and be in the middle if you'd like, but say,
Yeah, we're okay staying here, thank you.
okay.
Introduce yourself as well, just for the audience. I would.
What, sorry?
Introduce.
Oh, I'm Asher, I'm the student representative, one of the student representatives on the board. And here today to just give some feedback on the schedule for next year.
I'm Presley and I'm a senior at Clear Creek, and I'm here to also talk about the new schedule and some pros and cons.
Okay, so some pros that we gathered were students like that we are gonna have more course options next year. Another pro of the schedule is students like that there's gonna be daily contact with teachers, because obviously missing that day within the week can be kind of difficult sometimes. Shorter class periods also are a pro for most students, because just quite frankly, sometimes we don't need the whole time. But then again, that can also be a con at times, because for instance, like some science classes will need like an hour and a half or something if there's like a long lab that's going on. So it's kind of tough managing the class times, but we think that the shorter times could be a pro and a con. Another pro we had was improved consistency, just like the more traditional schedules, so students won't get confused when going to classes or things like that. And another pro we had was it may reduce the workload for teachers who obviously have a lot on their plate with long classes, and only meeting students 3 times a week can be challenging sometimes. So yeah, those were the pros we came up with, biggest pros.
And then another pro that we also talked about, and this was mostly, these are from the student government meeting that we had on Monday, we just kind of split into our classes by grade. And another pro that we talked about was how it's going to benefit athletes. Like with the schedule now, you are leaving in the afternoon and you're missing could be 4 classes instead of just the 1. And so that'll make it a lot easier for athletes to like make up that work that the time that they were gone for, instead of having to make up work for multiple different classes. It'll just be the few classes at the end. And then there was some cons that there was someone, this is the class of 2028, they liked the roll and drop because it changed up the schedule, and so you weren't just like going through the motions each day, you had to think about which classes, but I don't know if that was what we were going for there. Which other ones were we thinking? There was someone brought up the lunch being pushed back so late. They thought that that was too late in the day for lunch, since everyone's kind of used to eating right at noon, or the middle schoolers earlier than that. They were thinking that by the time it gets to lunchtime, no one's gonna be able to actually focus, because they're gonna be so hungry or not have enough energy to get them through that last bit until lunch. Especially for kids that come in late and maybe don't get time in the cafeteria to pick up breakfast, or don't have time to get it in the morning. So yeah, that was one of the cons that they were thinking about there.
Yeah, one more comment that was, some students were worried about, study halls, like that not being something that everybody might have, might make it tough for students if they miss a day for sports, or if they're sick or whatever. Not having study halls might be tough for students to make up work.
But it seems that everyone did like how it's gonna be more structured and less, of how it is now, where it's like, obviously like the changing each day, go into a different class the first period, everyone kind of liked how it's gonna be. You come in, you know where you're going, and then go from there, and so that was one of the big pros. Is there much else?
I think that was about it that we gathered from meetings.
So on the balance of it all, what is your personal opinions of it?
I like it. I think that this is so confusing, especially as middle schoolers. Like they come from, like I came from Georgetown Elementary School, and there's one class, you go to it, you follow with your people, and then to come here and not know what second period is that day, or not know where you're even supposed to be in the morning, it definitely can be intimidating and then flustered and not knowing exactly what you should be doing. And I also have been doing sports throughout my high school and middle school career, and so I think that that's gonna help a lot with the athletes being gone for away games and things like that, being able to miss just the one class instead of having to make up all of the other classes as well.
In my opinion, other than the timing for science classes that I mentioned earlier, which might be tough, I think the shorter classes are generally a pro. Getting to meet with each teacher every day, I think will help not only the students to keep in contact, but also the teachers with their workloads, and just being able to see the students, I think, is a better thing. I think that the only real cons, in my opinion, are the lunch is a little late for high schoolers, because I already know I get hungry at least at like 11:30, so.
I get hungry about
Just
10:30.
Do we have the ability as a school district to provide snacks to hold the kiddos over in between to accommodate the starving children?
So yeah, I've got a couple notes. They do have a snack
That's what I was
folder in
thinking.
the counseling office, so that they can swing by there. But I wondered what time Connect was planned to be in the new schedule. So not a question for you, but just maybe for the leadership team. That maybe we have a snack, or just, bring a piece of fruit for Connect today, and that might help get you over to lunch. I would love to know what the data is for first period attendance. I know that was one of the reasons to go to the roll drop, was that students were often late to that first period or missing that first period altogether. So by having the rolling drop, you weren't missing the same class every day. But on the flip side, in the afternoons with the rolling drop, our athletes could have a study hall that seventh period and not be missing a class. But with the rolling drop, on Tuesday, they're missing, seventh period, and on Wednesday, they're missing eighth period. So at least they weren't missing the same class all the time, but with the fixed schedule, I think that will be a benefit there. But thank you so much for gathering that student input for us, and I'm sorry that you guys won't get to experience it. Any other questions from the board?
I just would comment that just being a parent of two kids that have done the rolling drop, it's super confusing. And for them, it was so confusing that they actually knit cards so that the kids could try to follow this, it's not super intuitive for the kids. And then the whole student athlete thing was always, since my older daughter was in school, it was a big issue. So I think this is kind of gonna solve those problems.
I agree with Marcy. When Kaya started seventh grade, I had to buy her a smartwatch and programmed her schedule into her calendar so that it would give her a 5-minute notice for what class was next. So every single day, she's like, okay, that's where I need to go, because that was the only way really for her to make sure she was getting to the right class. So I agree that it's confusing.
Someone brought up about the time of Connect. I'll find that out. I'll put that as notes for all of you. And then
That could be something
I'll find out
mindful,
first
if
period
Connect is still kind of early in the day,
It's,
then maybe
I think
it's,
it's right after first block, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
from 9:01 to 9:24.
and that's what it's proposed for in the new schedule?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you guys wanna keep these, it kinda just has the notes.
That'd be great. And you can leave it on the table and we'll get them, but thank you very much.
I just have a process question. What happens now? I'm just not remembering, like, I thought we approved this schedule to take place, so it is happening. Is that right? Is my memory correct?
Yeah. It wasn't,
It's not really a board
it's not a board decision, but yes, it is,
But
it's
it's
happening at the 25-26 school year. Yes. They'll start registering for classes here next month.
Thank you so much again for that feedback. Any public comments? From the peanut gallery?
You mentioned the study hall and session period for athletes. They call it an athletic period at schools I've seen, where it's kind of like a weightlifting / lap or get work done, for
So that might
athletes.
be in there for scheduling is to have an option like that.
And it'd be upperclassmen who get priority. Varsity athletes.
Leah.
Monthly expenses. I did get some questions from Marcy. Does anyone else have questions?
I have a couple.
You want to start? You want to start with Marcy?
Why don't you go ahead and start with it, because I think some of mine are duplicates of what you have.
So first was Fund 10, page 5, CenturyLink, idle building there was 2 charges each for $142.14. And I was just asking if the charges, so it was like phone or something, can I just ask if the charges were necessary? If we could shut off the idle building phones, and Leah just said it's for the fire alarm, a landline for the fire alarm, and per the law, state law, we have to keep this active. Fund 10, page 7, El Dorado, $2,064.70. And I was just bringing back up the water, like what's going on, and do we need to talk about that again? Fund 10, page 14 was UMB bank card storing technologies. IT support was $5,650. I was just saying, I was assuming it was IT support while Sarah was out, and I asked if it was monthly or how often we pay, and that is what it was for, and it's paid on a monthly basis. Fund 10, page 14, Verizon, Dan Innes had a charge for $880.78. It was an equipment purchase of a new phone. And then I was we talk about it every month, but Everdriven, just to bring it up.
Thank you for
I
being
think
the
that
one
was
that's
it.
not the
Dreaded, Evergreen, or Everdriven.
The questions that I had were it kind of feels like there was an incident. I don't know what fund it was. I know it was on page 10. I'm still using my phone. I lost access again. Hy Barker Fire and Safety, I think the culmination of those expenses for that particular event was like $2,500. And it was after hours fire alarm things. And Aaron's shaking his head too. He's like, I know about that.
It was an after-hour fire alarm during the dance. I don't know if anyone was here for that. But we had a communication error essentially with one of our sensors that we could diagnose ourselves.
Oh, gotcha.
And being that it was during the dance and on a weekend, we had to, was Friday, I don't remember exactly. We had to call them for after-hour service.
Just wanted to make sure there wasn't a fire.
No fire in the school.
The strobe light we could dance with.
If it was just the strobe, it would have been okay, but the fire was rather
Smoke it.
You just gotta mix it in.
Going with the rave music. I had the same questions. I'm not sure I quite understood what you were saying about the soaring technologies, so.
Yeah, so with Sarah being out, we've basically contracted an IT ticketing support. They can't do everything for us, but they'll organize tickets, prioritize, and help Ethan with the things that they can complete.
Okay, gotcha.
So the workload's not.
Is there a link to the ticket system?
I think it's just IT at Clear Creek,
If you go on the website.
Is our
It's
normal support.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
so they're
gotcha.
just the first line of defense. They're
Gotcha.
doing like the easier tasks.
Got it.
Do we have like monthly reporting of that, or do they give us reports? or-
I'm meeting with them monthly.
Oh, okay,
Is it a flat rate or per?
It's flat.
call rate. Okay, the only other thing I was gonna mention is that in the district, we spend $15,000 in gas and electric every month.
Yeah, big building.
If I still worked at the utility, I'd say what a screaming deal that is.
Yeah. Okay, if no one has any other questions, we can move on to the budget process. Okay. So I thought I would just kind of first let you know what's happening behind the scenes. What you're not seeing in this meeting is that we have scheduled meetings with all of the leadership, principals, district leaders, et cetera. And just kind of racking everyone's brains for areas in their department, in their schools, what they think, could be potential cost savings, or on the flip side, if they're expecting any increased cost, and just kind of running tape on that and seeing what we could possibly do to start working to reduce our budget deficit and work towards a more balanced budget. With that, we created a responsibility matrix, kind of everyone's deadlines for first draft as well. Have a budget book template, and it's kind of assigned to responsible parties, if you will, on who's part of determining the budget for the different line items. One area for central support that I'm working on is the insurance renewal. We talked about that earlier this year. I'm working with High Street TCW Risk Management. They're gonna pull a few proposals for me. So I don't have my list of all the things I need to provide to them yet, but we've exchanged an email and a phone call. So that ball is rolling. Health insurance came in. We're expecting to see an increase in about 10%. So as part of our budgeting or negotiation, are we passing that to our employees, or are we as a district gonna be able to absorb that? We're splitting, that's a conversation to be had. Additionally, I've built out a salary model so we can make assumptions for how negotiations may or may not go, and we have kind of a template for today. Here's what our salary budgets are. If we were to do X, Y, Z, here's what our salary budget will look like. That's obviously will be pending until we're able to reach an agreement. And then what we're going to be delivering to you is basically February, March, and April. We'll have a slated time slot on each business meeting just for additional brainstorming, kind of presenting to you ideas that we've come together with leadership where we think we might have potential savings, get your input, and then, from February, March to April, any cost updates, we'll just go through those as they come in. I think a big thing to have on your mind is coming to what is our goal if we're projecting I think $700,000 to $900,000 loss this fiscal year. How much do we think is achievable to cut from the budget? Are we planning to continue at that rate? Just kind of getting our heads wrapped around what feels appropriate and attainable. That'll change the decisions that are made along the way. So keep that in mind, and we'll obviously touch more on that in the next meeting when we can go through Q2 financials, double check where we're at in comparison to the initial budget, and then go from there.
That was one thing that I was going to ask you. When we're looking at the budget, or not the budget, but your expenditures online, would it be possible to put what the actual budget number is for that line item?
We might be able to
Because I see an awful lot, for instance, an awful lot of IT expenditures, like $15,000 for another rack and that sort of thing. It'd be kind of good to see where we're at on the plateau of our budget. As we're
Yeah,
looking
so
at
from a
this.
summary standpoint, I don't know that you'd be able to receive it on that information on those reports. Is there a report out there that does tell you kind of your budget to
snapshot.
actual? Yeah, it's more of like a summary report, and we have those built by like technology, maintenance, transportation. We have some of those reports already built out. So that information is available and it is being analyzed as we speak. But there is some kind of moving parts of this budget used to belong to this department. Now we think it makes more sense over here. So there's some
Right,
cleanup to
sure.
be done. But
Understood.
overall, yeah, we have that information. And that's all part of the budget book that we're building out and what we're providing to each, I guess, district department.
Right. So
Yeah.
is there a way, for instance, if I wanted to just check the pulse on a
Yeah.
line item, where do I go to get that?
Yeah, I would have to just run you a report,
Okay, gotcha.
but it's,
I don't want
it's doable.
less work for you, not more.
Yeah, I mean, send the questions this way and maybe we can
Right.
kind of streamline it too.
Maybe
Yeah, I mean,
quarterly we just get. the
My
budget.
thoughts are, like, as a whole, we're pretty close from what I'm seeing. Now, I'll do a deeper dive when I go through Q2 financials, but everything seems to be trending within a couple $100,000 is really where I think we'll land. There's certain areas where we're underspending, certain areas we're overspending, but budget as a whole, I think our revenue will come in a little higher. Like, I don't think we're in our worst case scenario, but yeah,
Okay.
I'll give you a more firm number next week, I think.
And Leah, has kind of shared, some different things, like this budget's, 43% spent right now, and
Yeah.
54% spent right now.
Right, and we actually used to get those.
That kind
Yeah.
of stuff, she's kind of shared. Now that can be misleading too sometimes, because there's a big expense that happens every
Right,
April, let's say.
exactly,
So it's,
right.
it's only 53%
It's only
spent. Well,
23% spent, we're halfway through the year.
Well, and with
we
that,
have
how
60%
I
coming up next month.
managing the books is to oftentimes have, I mean, like JCMH, we're not gonna put that in a prepaid expense account, but a lot of the expenditures as they come in, we expense them on a quarterly basis, so we will start to get a more flat, like, understanding of where we're at. There's a line on how much, you want to have on that schedule. But also, beginning of the year, seems like expenses are higher, and at the end of the year, close the budget. But yeah, overall, I think we're in a pretty good place, and the budgets appear to be pretty
I'm
close.
thinking, just from the few discussions we've had with directors and principals, we haven't had all those yet, but then some meetings that Leah, Kristen, and I have had, just looking at what are some things that we could reduce for next year. We'll get into that, but we've had some really good conversations and some really good input from people as well on realistic things, so.
And I
we'll be
think
sharing
we
those
really
things.
invite all of our leaders to
Yeah.
really be active participants in the next few meetings especially. So it's more fluid and we can all have these conversations. It's just not me trying to echo somebody else's sentiment. So I think, just opening up the conversation so we can make decisions as a community.
And as you're doing those meetings and then kind of compiling all of that information to come back and build a budget, is there a way maybe kind of in that process that we could have maybe a snapshot or a summary of what those meetings are looking like? And if we're hearing from every building leader that they want to get rid of blah, 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 and they would like da-da-da. I think it'd be nice for us to just sort of have some of that trickling in through this February, March, April timeframe as we're looking at and considering, so that, because we're not in all of those
No,
meetings.
I
don't
agree.
think
We have
want
to give
be,
you
but if we could hear
information
that summary
so you
now,
can
that would be very helpful, I think.
Okay.
And I think the plan is to share those conversations, a summary of those
Yeah,
conversations.
perfect.
And here's something that,
Mhm.
seems like we
Yeah,
can
just
do
your
this.
top lines.
We can
Yeah, I don't
put
want to
this,
bore you with all
Yeah.
the details, but
Yeah.
we have like a spreadsheet of kind of like a list of everything and then a dollar amount associated with it. They're obviously ROMs, but it would give you a good sense of what we're talking about. And then we also just have kind of meeting notes too that we could provide if you
And I
would
went
be
through mine
interested.
last week, I sent you guys,
Yeah.
mine, you guys probably made fun of them after I sent it to you, but.
No,
that's
they're
all right.
good.
You know?
We had a separate meeting for that.
I think they're meeting today and that, I don't know.
No, I think it's great.
I think the
No,
goal
that's
is definitely to have everybody more involved in that process. So we're not making decisions in a vacuum. I'm not coming to you in June and saying, I need this budget ratified
Right.
today.
Thank you.
Without it.
Now, with negotiations, they're scheduled in April, in May, sorry. So it's gonna be a pretty close and touch and go turnaround to have a proposed budget to you for the May, business meeting. I think it's doable, as long as everything else is kind of already done, because it's really just only a couple day turnaround. You won't have a ton of time to review the proposed budget prior to the meeting, but, that's not the budget we're ratifying. So it'll give you, a month to really digest the information, and then we'll ratify the budget in June. And then, we also need to have a notice of the publication, just financial transparency in between there as well.
This is the first year that we're going to have student reps helping guide us through this.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be relaying all the topics of potential savings that we've discussed in our meetings, and we'll figure out kind of a clean package deliverable for you. So you're not hearing anything for the first time, if you will. Is there anything else that you would like to see out of this process?
I don't know how we can ask for much more. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
We've had another applicant for the District Accountability Committee, Lindsay Valdez. She is a parent from Georgetown. Sorry. And sits on our Clear Creek Economic Development Council as the director there. So I think she's a great representative for us to consider.
And I think that we have both of the Georgetown spots totally open, right? One that is a parent and one that has, I want to say.
Well, Courtney's
independent
doing that.
charter experience with the charter.
Courtney is on deck, so she could be one with charter experience.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
She's
and
in
then
the
Lindsay could
admin
fulfill
there.
the
Okay,
parent.
gotcha. So it would seem that, yeah, a parent for Georgetown is the way to go there. Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Is there any discussion?
I think we'll,
Yeah.
we'll do a great job.
I agree.
I didn't see all this other stuff on my cell phone.
Yeah, her little synopsis of why she'd be a great candidate. See, then the Clear Creek Economic Development Corp is looking for a resilience team representative. We've got Kelly, who's the
Chairwoman.
board chair. Yeah, there we go. Say, thank you for all the hats. that you wear. And we just wanted to discuss whether we wanted Kelly to represent us as a board, or if we would like to support her so that she can wear just the board chair hat in those meetings. So that is what this space is for.
Well, I think one thing that I will just give you a little bit of an update as to how this is moving. Not only are people being, kind of going through this same exercise that we're doing of who's going in, but just to let you know, since we last met, Georgetown is passing their resolution tonight, or we expect that they will. Central City on the 21st. So we really do have very good representation from all our jurisdictions. Blackhawk is the one that we're kind of waiting on to do theirs, but it does look at this point that we will have a full team. So just thought I'd share that with you. And there's a lot of positivity and excitement around the work. So as I've mentioned before, I will be there anyway, so I'm happy to cover us there. And like I said, people are very excited. So if you are one of those people, I would love for you to come in addition to me.
Does anybody else want to? I mean, I do think that there is a benefit to having two. I mean, I know you're not representing the district when you're sitting in that chair spot, but having two district folks there can't be bad, right? So I have space open for that if anybody else is interested in doing that. Are you interested?
Say, it's kind of a mixed bag, because we're all
Right.
very busy. Say, I am interested as a business owner, is to make sure that all the things, yeah, but that's why I sit here too, so. So yeah, I'm always willing to assist. Like I said, I thought you did a fantastic job with the event last February, and, you know, if I can be hands and feet to assist with that, I would be glad to, but at the same time, I also recognize how busy everybody's schedules are, so.
So it sounds like it's gonna be you.
I'll let us know, and of course, please, you know, as we build all of this out, we have confirmed that Dr. Flo Rotano from Dr. Cog will facilitate our meeting again, our initial one, big one that we'll have in February. We now realize we actually can call it the first annual, because the first time you do it is your inaugural. I should have known that, but I didn't. So this will be our first annual meeting, and Dr. Rotano will facilitate that again. These resiliency team meetings will be an addition. And so I'm happy to do that and report back. And the thing that now that I've heard there's relative interest or wanting the exposure, I'll just keep you posted when the meetings are, and come if you want, and don't if you don't. And I will report back, and I think we can manage it that way if that works for everybody else.
Thank you.
Sure.
Winter board meetings, dates, times, locations, I know I-70 can sometimes be a struggle. So, yeah, we wanted to create some space just to discuss. That said, it's difficult enough for our students to get here to this building to be with us. So there's a lot of things in play. And one of the solutions that was discussed, and Tom lifted up in the cover sheet, was that we always have the virtual option. So we just, again, wanted to create some space for, you know, we've drawn maps, we know how far it is from all the places. I know you're often coming from Copper, so that's
Well,
harder
it's not
too.
even just coming from Copper, when you're coming from Georgetown even on I-70. For instance, it took me an hour and 15 minutes to get here tonight.
Okay.
Between the 3 and 5 o'clock time is that major, you know,
Mhm.
snow. It doesn't matter what day anymore. It used to be just certain days. Now it's every day, every night. I think, you know,
And they're
I'm
doing
thinking
scaling.
about the students too, you know, I don't, you know, it would be awesome if I could just take frontage road to Idaho Springs. That would save an hour of my life every time I have to come. But if you guys can't get there, that's a deal breaker for me, right?
Yeah.
But if we could maybe make these a little bit later, so I'm missing that prime speed traffic thing, that would probably be super helpful. Maybe I'm not spending enough. I mean, there were times last year where I spent 2 hours on the road to get to a meeting. And I know that remote is an option, but
It's not the same.
it's terrible. It's awful.
So an option that I'm hearing is aligning this study session with the board meeting.
What
With
time
a
is our
four-
board meeting?
Instead of
at?
a 4:30 start, make it a 5 PM start.
I like that.
That adds some consistency to time, because one time I came to the business meeting, it was at 4:30. So half hour, that was only my second month or so.
How about as a student, you know, what, if these started even at 6,
Would that
would
work
that-
for you?
be better for you? So it'd be at the end of practice, or would you just be done and need to go home and do some
And eat,
studying?
because you're always starving.
Yeah.
Probably would be hungry, but no, it'd be okay. I would still be here, yeah. And it would be nice after practice.
What time does your practice end usually?
Usually around, it's supposed to end at 6, but usually things start winding down at like 5:30-ish for ski practices.
That's it.
So 6 does get me past a lot of the ski traffic, but, you know, it's not all about me.
I think consistency in time would be great.
Yes.
I get
I agree.
confused every meeting, I have to admit, is at 5 o'clock at the.
You guys hear that?
And I'm not Costa Rica, I'm like, oh, we're on. I don't get the new benefit of that, I guess I just get the idiot benefit of that, because I almost miss it up every time, so I would love a consistent time. But 6 makes me a little anxious, only because we have had meetings that are 3+ hours, and I think getting home at 10 o'clock is a huge bummer, for me, probably for everyone. So I think if we could be intentional that we don't do that, I could support that, but otherwise 6 feels too late to start, and maybe we split this in the middle and we call it 5:30 and we do 5:30 for study and business. And if you have to be remote or anybody has to for the beginning, maybe that's how we cover that for the
You
time.
guys cover my reports anyway, so.
Yeah, no, I feel like I did what Carrie Ann did, it'll be easy.
Right.
But I think.
I can live with that.
But I think maybe that might be something to.
And it sounds like it might benefit our students as well, that, you know, even if,
It's a positive
Yeah.
way for them. I
Yes.
think, Yeah.
because we looked at moving it earlier so more educators could come and. You know, and again, you all have a virtual option as well. We love having, you know, input and an audience, but, yeah, I think,
I
Make
think
it
that
short.
would be good.
say,
5:30 for both of the
Okay.
meetings. That also gives folks from the west end of town time to get here if they'd like to be here.
Or if people were
Coming
coming down the
from-
hill and want to come.
Right,
Some of us.
exactly. Mhm. Yeah, like you people.
well, again, thank you for
Okay.
allowing us to create a little space. Is that, do we need to vote on it?
It's not a voting time,
Yeah.
that'd be it. So I
Oh,
would
not
think we
today,
would,
not today.
yeah, I would think we would wanna,
Okay.
since it's gonna be a time change, I think we wanna let people know official
Let's put
action.
it on the agenda.
No, it was,
Yeah.
No, exactly.
So will this go in effect February or?
yes.
We'll still start
I think February would be great because, there's a lot of snow.
I think in January, our next meeting on Thursday should still be 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
sure.
Close
Yes,
to
of
it.
course.
Excellent. All right, on to policy. We've got 3 policies under second read. Did we have any additional feedback on any of them? Okay. GDD being staff vacations and holidays. GCL being professional staff schedules and calendars. Both of those were, well, I guess all of them. The ICICA with the school year, school calendar, and instruction time really were just aligning all those policies with the new 4-day school week. So unless there's any other comments or concerns. Now we have under first read, policies LBD and LBDR. And these were some policies that we looked at in the fall of '23, but because we were going into charter negotiations, we kind of put a pause on it. Most of it is changing shalls to wills or wills to shall, because it seems like every couple of years the
Well, change
connotative
this-
meaning changes, so I don't know, anyhow.
It does,
It's
it does
will
change
now.
some of the scheduling
Yes.
and all of those.
Yes,
Like a month and whatever.
yeah, the LBDR was a little bit more complex. But most of it was verbiage coming from CASB. But that will go, it's actually already gone live. I saw the email go out from Michelle McNeil. So that's available for public comment now. Any questions and concerns? Just
No, I
on first
don't
glance?
have any concerns. As a matter of fact, I shared this with the Georgetown Charter folks so that they could have
Good,
a
I'm glad
read
you
and
did
just make sure that, they didn't have anything that popped out at them. They're totally fine. My question to the admin team would be, are all of these red lines CASB red lines or are they CASB and RH?
Cassie.
They're
They're all
CASB, right?
CASB. Okay, that sounds, like I said, that Georgetown is fine, we understand the new scheduling that was already pegged last time we did negotiations, it's just now in writing within our school policy.
Excellent, yeah. So, any other thoughts, questions, concerns? All right, any future agenda items? Seeing none.
I just have a
Oh,
question.
Yeah.
When we might consider having an executive session around negotiations. Because I know we're coming into that season, and I think that it's always good for us as a board to kind of have
Some parameters.
some dialogue around, you know, how, I mean, I realize as the board representative, but I also want to make sure that I'm, you know, sharing everyone's voice on the board, and it's not just my opinion. So I like to go into that knowing how people feel.
Yes. So some of that aligns with when Leah feels like we've got something that's kind of workable that we can do.
I have a salary model built. I feel like we kind of have data that we need. It really, I mean, I think you kind of have a rough area of where we're at once you get Q2 financials. So after the January meeting, I think really any time thereafter, and obviously the first negotiation meeting, I think is the last week of February,
Oh, February.
the first one.
The first one's February 28th.
Oh, wow.
So I would think
Yeah,
you would
second,
probably
third
wanna
option.
have your,
Yeah, so we have, Kristen, we have a meeting on January 20th, so I would say after January 20th, maybe
Yes.
before first session, sometime in there, I think it would be a good idea to have.
My question is, do you usually do your executive sessions like prior to a board meeting or a separate night or? how do
It
you
just
go?
whatever works for the schedule of the group. I mean, I think that
I s-
if we could.
We do have to schedule a meeting
Yeah,
in order
yes.
to have an executive session. So
Yes.
it can be a special meeting, or it can be attached to the, like, learning.
I just didn't know how you typically did it that way.
I think we've done it both ways.
Yeah, we've done it. It just depends on
Whatever works.
how urgent are we to.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can schedule it far enough in advance, then maybe we can
Right.
attach it to a board meeting.
So before the first actual negotiations on February 28th, we have two board meetings and one study session if we want to try and squeeze it into one of those.
Yeah.
After our.
After the 20th though, yes. Okay.
That would be my strong preference, is to tack before or after an existing meeting. I think cat herding all of us to try to find a special one is gonna be very challenging. So my preference would be to bolt it on.
And we've done after before, and those tended to be really late nights. Would we prefer to do it earlier, but then that means you're going through crazy traffic.
Yeah. Well, I think that us being hangry takes precedence over my being here early. For the teacher's sake, I'll just go with that.
I mean, maybe I could suggest that we did it as an executive session after our next study session. And then that's.
We can't do it after a study session.
Well, we can have a
Yeah.
special meeting after the study session that has an
Then,
executive session
right,
attached to it.
Exactly. Technically.
Welcome to
That would be
school board law.
February, and that would be February 11th.
Okay.
So why don't people check that? My thought would be,
That's my
Check.
husband's birthday.
like, why
That's
did
his
everybody-
birthday?
But actually, it's my husband's birthday, but he's actually in a training until 9 o'clock.
We're always
I didn't
doing
know
something on your husband's
now
birthday.
another thing, on my calendar for February 11th, correct me if I'm wrong on this, we have the commissioner meeting that they scheduled right now at 3:30. We probably push that to 4. I assume we could read that. No.
Yeah.
But how do you want to do that? Because that might be a
That sounds too long.
long meeting then. And
I
really-
withdraw my suggestion.
I think we need to have that meeting, and then we can have it in
We do.
December.
So before or after the business meeting the following week then? But if we're gonna start at 5:30, do we wanna do it before, like at 4:30 that day? On the 20th?
February 20th.
I'm unavailable. 4:30.
Unavailable?
The earliest I can get here is 5.
Well, who's doing the agenda planning? We'll just make sure it's crazy.
It's yours if you'd like it.
Yeah, I wanna say, I can't give out too much information just because it's personal information, but I have some personal stuff that might influence how much I can participate in some stuff next month. So, as long as that goes my way, I'm gonna say it that way, then I'll do it. And if not, Carrie Ann, can you be my backup?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on date?
Could we do the 23rd, the
I'm
meeting
sorry.
on the 23rd? Oh, that's next week. Can we
So
just do it next week?
February-
Because that's after your
I
meeting
think
on the
February
20th, right?
20th before the
Kelly can't get here
Well, she said
earlier.
she can't get here until
On the
5 o'clock, so we
20th.
would have to do it, if we did it February 20th, we would have to do it afterwards.
What about the week of the 27th?
Of
I'm
February.
kind of open other than closings and appraisals and
Are you
stuff
talking about this month or?
this month.
Well, it does make me wonder if we could do it after our business meeting next week. You know,
The
Oh, right.
financials are pretty fresh.
financials are fresh. We will just had the meeting on Monday. We're gonna be here anyway.
And our meeting's at 5.
And it's
so
after
we're
At
really-
5, so it still is earlier
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm good with that.
To do it after that?
after that, on the
Yeah.
23rd.
Thank you, ladies, for the effort.
We dipped it out.
Yeah. And we'll get some possible dates for agenda planning out so that,
And I just wanted to circle back on future agenda items to graduation requirements, because we had mentioned that one, and talked about it at a February meeting, so just want to make sure that shows back up.
Yeah, I think that will come up in March, April.
And the space for the PTA, I don't know if that's been added or just as a, like DAC
yes,
at.
I think those messages were going out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the PTO, so one thing that Brandy mentioned to me is having, we talked about PTO. She thought it might be good to have a booster club also. They've been highly involved in
I think
building
so.
that way. So the middle school, high school will be represented by a PTO and the booster club. And that's gonna be, we're sending things out for them to do it next month. Then we can decide how regular we want those or not, or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but the booster club will be involved, so.
Can I ask a question real quick? I know it's not related to something on the agenda, but last month I talked about how the Evergreen High School students were gonna have an event at the Evergreen Bread Lounge that's led by teens, like a teen forum around mental health.
February, correct?
Yes, in February. And I just got an email asking if anyone knows someone ages 12 to 20 who would be interested in performing at the event, music, poetry reading, et cetera, whatever kind of performing they might like to do. That would be, anybody that would be interested in performing at that. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case
Yeah.
somebody knows somebody.
That would be
What date is that again?
Okay.
I have it in my other.
It is the second.
So you can talk about provided the reading.
Yes, well, February
Up
2nd
there.
from 4 to 6 p.m.
Thank you.
And I also have a flyer that I can forward to everyone about that event.
Thank you.
And then, just provide me that, just give you something from this book here, The Anxious Generation, which is a book that I'm thinking about. I just want your input on this, but offering it up to a variety of community leaders that way. Anybody send things to regularly, with all of you, anybody else, and then throwing it out just in general to anyone who would like to come sometime. That way, kind
Do you have
of.
an idea of how often you'd like to?
I would say anything more than once a month is hard for people to do. I'm just being honest with you. They can cover this in probably 3 weeks realistically. There's some study guides to go with it. I've done it before. There's another book, Generations, very similar to this, a little older. Actually, I have a bunch of stuff already prepared for that, so that'd be really easy. But this is probably a more relevant one to do at this time. So I'll bring it up at the board meeting a little bit more, but so it's kind of. This is, so, yeah, this is just my notes and edits on this.
All right. I would look for a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
I know. We were gonna talk at the same time, but now I don't know if you were gonna say the same thing.
I know.
I was gonna move to adjourn.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Before everybody leaves, I need a picture though, okay?
Oh, my best picture attire. Well, they are, but the photos are underneath.
Oh, okay.
Where do you want to do it at? You want to do it stand behind, maybe you, it doesn't matter.
With the fireplace behind?
Fireplace, let's do that.
Thanks for